Yeah, so I'm here to share a little bit of all the stuff we have been doing so far at VanMoof, and we have quite an ambitious goal because that's getting the next billion on bikes. So let's get started. Let's see if this works. Yeah. So very quickly, a little bit about VanMoof. We are a bicycle company based in Amsterdam. Started around 10 years ago, and currently we're around 150 employees. I think already over 180, so I need to update my slides, but that's why I add a little plus there. We are active in about 25 countries, mainly here in Europe, but also in the US. We have about 8 brand stores. One of them is actually here in Paris. And I think one of the unique things about our product is that's about 90% is built in-house. So why we do what we do? If you look at a lot of research that's being done around commuting, that the answer is very simple, very quickly, is that commuting sucks. People don't enjoy to be in a traffic jam or be in a cramped metro if it actually works. So we think that bikes can help. We think that bikes can make the city better, make you a little bit more healthier and get some exercise. So that's why our mission is to get the next billion on bikes. We don't necessarily need to sell a billion bikes, although we would love to, but this is our mission. How do we do it? Or with what, actually? Currently with these 2 bikes. On the left is our electrified X2, and on the right our electrified S2, with full-on battery and motors, etc. inside. And so how do we do it? Well, we try to be innovative, mainly in our products. So for example, on the right image, you see the kick lock. Bike theft is a big issue. Well, for example, in the city we are based, in Amsterdam, a lot of bikes get stolen. I think on average, each bike in Amsterdam has been stolen at least 3 times. So it's quite an issue. So that's why we developed the kick lock. It's a little pin that you shoots into the rear wheel. And then it completely locks the rear wheel, and even with testing it, we even managed to bend the frame instead of breaking the lock, so it works quite well. And then we do other technologies in there as well, like if you move the bike, it will the sounds will go off, alarms, the lights will flash in a SOS signal, so it will try to scare off bike theft or bike thieves. So in the end, our mantra is to help you as a rider outsmart the city, enjoy the city much more. And here are some of our Parisian riders.
VanMoof is a very beautiful answer to this desire to rediscover the city around me. Minimalist design for maximalist experience.
Et du coup, je me déplace pratiquement sur les deux. Voilà. Et en tant que vélo électrique, je montre bien il fait partie pour l'instant des plus beaux vélos électriques. En fait, on ne voit pas que c'est un vélo électrique. Dans les vélos, on voit les batteries derrière, qu'il faut les lever devant. Je déteste ça. I always have something unusual, so it really defined my personality. It's actually a part of me that if I have to have a bike, it has to be a VanMoof. Pure design, pure quality, never have a problem with it. I love it.
I may say also this is a very good example of a very famous phrase by a very well-known architect called Mies van der Rohe, who one day said, less is more. You don't see a lot, but there are a lot of things inside the bike.
Before I move on, I have to thank my video editor at VanMoof who made this last weekend, especially for today, so I'm really thankful for that. So from outsmarting the city, I want to move on to outsmarting growth marketing. And for that, I have to sketch a little bit of a context. Basically, so VanMoof started about 10 years ago, and already for like the last 4 or 5 years, there has been an amazing creative marketing team within the company, but there was not really a performance marketing or growth marketing team. That only started 2 years ago with me and my colleague. And now luckily we are with around 6 people. First things we needed to do was just crawl and fix a lot of basics. And from the crawling phase, from fixing a lot of basic stuff, we can slowly start to walk again and get up a little bit more and finally go a little bit faster and running. And from these 3 steps, I want to move to some of the examples we have been run to, went to, and to optimize and to sell a lot more bikes, luckily. So with crawling, what I really mean fixing basics. I mean like even fixing shit. And with that, I mean making sure that your website is actually functional, that it works. Does it work on all the devices that you are have your users all the devices that your users are using? And even within those devices, there can be big differences. Your Safari browser is different, and your normal Safari browser is different than your in-app Safari browser. It's slightly smaller, so it might have a big effect on how the website works. One of the things that I did when I joined VanMoof was sitting together with our CEO and say, okay, let's do one thing, let's just purchase a bike, and let's see and write down all the issues that we find by just doing it ourselves. And then quickly he understands, okay, there is actually a lot of things wrong. There's a lot of context or a lot of content missing that we just need to optimize. And then the second thing is like, let's make sure that people don't run into any errors, from 404s to 301s to even 500 errors, and making sure that we actually solve a lot of issues that just users are run into. And lastly is that making sure that the website loads quickly and is responsive on all the devices and all connections. When I'm in the Netherlands and I travel between 2 cities, Amsterdam and Utrecht, there's this little point where you just have no internet connection at all. And it's like the perfect moment to test your own website and eat your own dog food. And with just checking if your website loads quickly, I love this cartoon, and I'm also explaining this a lot internally and saying, okay, but if our load time of a website is 3 seconds or maybe even 10 or 15 seconds, that's basically saying that to people who want to go in our physical brand stores, say, oh, sorry, you have to wait for 10 seconds before you can walk in. Well, that's just ridiculous. So we need to solve it. So that's why we solve a lot of them. And the same is for solving a lot of errors. We are pretty fortunate that we get a lot of nice press, that people and journalists want to write about our bikes, but unfortunately, a lot of those are sort of ending up on 404 pages again, especially from this article, which was the Spiegel wrote about our first electric bike we ever built about 5 or 6 years ago. But it still got a lot of traffic when I joined VanMoof, so it was just a waste and a big opportunity to solve these types of errors as quickly as possible, just looking into Google Analytics and solving them. And later move on to using other tools to find even more and more pages that ended up as a 404. So once you fix your website, it's getting quicker and quicker. It's responsive, it works on all the devices, we can slowly start to walk. And then we are more thinking about, okay, let's make sure that what are the things that our users want to achieve on our website. And if they can do, then we probably can do and sell some more bikes too. So to start optimizing, we need to listen more. Listen more to our users, listen more to your customers. For example, on our website, we use a lot of Hotjar. It's brilliant to just get a lot of feedback in qualitative and quantitative, because we can ask a little poll on a certain web page, like saying, hey, what are you missing? Or at the end of a conversion, how was this experience? Are there items we need to optimize for? Or just get random feedback in because of the little feedback button that's on the side of the page. Then also make sure that we tailor more and more to customer journeys and buying modalities. There's a lot of buying a bike is totally different in Amsterdam, where a bike is totally common to buy to purchase. You do it a couple times in your life. Where versus in the US, you even have to explain that you can use a bike to go to work from Monday to Friday, and it's not only a product that you use on a Saturday afternoon as a sport. And also, which is nowadays more and more getting an issue because of ITPs, thinking about increasing your cookie duration. So we're using a tool called TraceTalk that checks, for example, if a Google Analytics hit gets blocked. And if it gets blocked, then it sends it via the measurement protocol to our own Google Analytics. And the same is it checks or rewrites actually cookies from a server-side perspective. So we can increase the lifetime of a cookie so we can advertise longer on them, which helps us to increase or optimize our sort of no, actually sort of fix or attribution, because otherwise it would be completely broken. And the second thing is, for example, this is our specs table, or it used to be our specs table, which is 2 brilliant images, and it shows you every little freaking detail of the bike. Except you don't see it because you need to hover over it with your mouse. On mobile, it was even worse because you don't have a mouse and you couldn't tap and see anything. But those people who want to see those specs, they need to. So we luckily quickly iterated on that because we got a lot of feedback in saying this doesn't work. So we built a completely new specs table where we even explained in images, okay, what is all the different sizes of the bike, and we can even compare it between the two frames that we have. So this is the X frame, and compare it also with the S frame. And this is something that we mainly got, for example, from Germany. A lot of Germans apparently need a lot of detail. They even need to know. So even on the German page, we have a PDF with all the details of even the last bolt that we have on the rear wheel, because people wanted to know that. And while in the Netherlands, they just buy a bike because they think it's a good brand and it looks nice. So there's a completely different buyer modalities going on. And once we started optimizing for that, for the different customer journey phases and also for the different buyer modalities, we can finally run and we can start thinking about more and more about what is actually the customer journey and what are all the channels that we have. So we started using a simple funnel to mainly actually help our whole creative marketing team, but also take our management along and say, this is roughly and very super simplified customer journey. So getting those e-bike curious prospects in, once they're in, make sure that we capture mainly leads, because we noticed that is a very effective way of turning them into sales or turning them into customers. And from there on, making sure that we can build lasting relationships and turning them into ambassadors. For that, we also created a lot of sort of tools of trade, as we call them. So for example, on the C phase, we use a lot of video on Facebook, but also on YouTube. And for in the think phase, we use a lot more of display, but also we use our blog a lot more and explain more about, okay, how did we, for example, develop the kick lock. But also making sure that they actually go to our brand stores and go for a test ride. And from there on, we noticed that test rides are an awesome way to sell the bike. And finally, to build more relationship, turn our customers into ambassadors, use a referral program so they can refer more people to purchase a bike. And then we have that funnel, and then we're still sort of searching for the perfect mix across all those channels, across all those phases of the customer journey, how to spend our euro or dollar as effective and efficient as possible. So that's why we want to experiment a lot. Experiment in all the different phases of the customer journey, with all the different channels that we have, with different assets, within the different audiences. And because we experiment a lot, we can also learn a lot. Learn more about the audience, learn more about what message do we need to say in what moment in time, and be more and more effective. And in the end, which is sort of the end result we're all aiming for, is to earn more against the lowest cost. And we believe that this is also a way of working that is much more risk averse, and it's an awesome way to learn a lot what is going on in the market. And then we sort of defined a lot of the things we can do in all the channels that we have, and test a lot. One of the things we do is, for example, quarterly brand trackers within YouTube and Facebook. And then we basically try to answer or figure out what are people saying, what are people thinking about our brand. So for example, on YouTube, you might have seen it yourself. You might be part of a brand study where people are asking, hey, do you know? In my case, they ask something about liquor, might say something about me. So in that way, we try to figure out, for example, purchase intent, but also brand interest, or even or a couple others. And we do it across different markets we're active in, and we do it every quarter, so we can sort of make a graph and see over time if we're growing or not, or even if other brands are growing. And then we can do this nice little word, which I can't explain, or say. But basically, to sort of mainly to do this, or at least connect online and offline together, we work a lot with our brand stores. And actually, it was sort of happening by accident. So one of our brand stores, this case in San Francisco, but also they use it in New York, the customer needs to sign a waiver before they do a test ride in a brand store. Basically says, like, if you break a leg, it's not the fault of VanMoof. But they fill it in by hand, so nobody could read, again, what the phone number was or the email address. So if a customer or a prospect actually was still riding for 2 hours, and we were like, okay, let's call this person and see where he is. Does he have any problems with the bike? We couldn't reach him. So we started automating that. We made a little form in Typeform and saying, okay, let's make this all digital, make sure that people fill in an email address so we can quickly get in touch with this person if this person starts going on the test ride. And the nice thing about it is because we had this little email address of this person, we could match it with a sales database and figure out, okay, how many people are actually just going for a test ride, purchase in a brand store, or even purchase online. And what we figured out is that around 10% of the people who went to do a test ride bought a bike online within 3 to 4 days. The other way around was actually also happening, is that there were a lot of people who purchased a bike online, and then finally we're still going to the brand store to do a test ride afterwards to sort of confirm their purchase, which was even more interesting. At least this also really helped all our brand stores to sort of incentivize them. Okay, if a prospect walks in and wants to do a test ride, that's really good and also helps them to sell more, because it will sell them more online as well. So that's why we try to come up with a lot of experiments so we can learn more and we can earn more. But then we need to make sure that we also spend the resources a bit well. And not only our own resource, but also from others. So that's why we sort of apply the 70-20-10 rule, and with 70 we try to focus our time and money on the usual suspects, the channels that we know is going to work. We don't really need to really test that, well, within the channels, of course. And then 20% on like the new high potential stuff that we don't really know what's going to happen. We probably know it will be successful, but let's be cautious about it. And finally, let's make sure we actually spend time on some of the moonshots that will likely fail. But let's think about what would it be if you would buy a VanMoof bike with just an Alexa, for example. How would that look like? How would you buy a bike of 3,000 euros with just voice? So that's just interesting project. We try to make time for at least 10% of our time and money to figure that out. And from there on, we also try to help our whole creative team and saying, okay, let's figure out more and more what type of content do we have, and can we sort of split that up and make sure that we actually spend enough resources and money on creating more and more content. For example, to help our current riders, but also to engage more with our audience and also attract new audiences. So for example, to help our current riders, we made a whole unboxing video, which in like 7 to 8 minutes, we explain how to take the bike out of the box, assemble the pedals, set the steering wheel straight, and turn on the motor, basically. And from there on, the rider can run or can cycle out of his house and into the city within about 7 minutes. But also simple support videos explaining how the boost button on the steering wheel works. At the same time, we also want to create more content to communicate continuously with our audience. For example, with the Bike Hunter stories. So each month, or continuously actually, our bike hunters go out into the cities and try to find stolen VanMoof bikes back. And we give them a GoPro and make sure that they film it. And every month we combine those little videos into a 3-minute video and a blog post and share this with our audience. And lastly, we want to make awesome content, what our CEO even calls bike porn. We still try to figure out what that means. But at least we're aiming for it. And other things like rider stories, which was the first video you just saw, but also playing around, for example, with AR. So on our website, you can now find a link to AR, and you will see the whole bike augmented, for example, here on stage. It even has sounds and whistles and bells to it. And once in a while, we try to go even a little bit further, for example, with our bike hunter episodes, and go big, and for example, go to Ukraine to find bikes back.
Going to be a tricky, tough job here. So what do you see? Nothing. Sebastian, what's 7 guns? Holy crap. The bike just moved.
It's good.
This is it.
It's definitely the place.
You see these sirens as well?
Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. Well, I want one. That would be 1,000,001 clients. Brilliant stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions? We've got a really quick minute for a question. I mean, I really like the moonshot idea. Did you do any moonshots that
Yeah, so
hit the moon, as it were?
So we just released the AR stuff, and about 3-4 weeks ago, and I was looking into the data. Okay, how many people clicking on it, and then try to figure out. Okay, does it lead to any sales? And I can't share you the full numbers, but we're super happy with the results so far.
You hit the moon. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Big round of applause.
Thanks.